Welcome to another episode of the Jesus Agenda podcast, the podcast where the politics, culture, and religion of the day meet Jesus and his agenda. Normally, Pastor Steve and I have sort of this scripted show set out for you, but today we're just going to present stories that we've both been looking at throughout the week and talk about them as they come up. And Steve's got the first one he wants to share from the realm of politics.
Okay, yes, I had another one picked, but of course today is, what's the date today?
The second?
The second, yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. We found out that Hunter Biden was pardoned by his father for...
No.
Yeah. And of course, so what makes this... It is kind of like, I mean, Trump said it was an abuse, and I agree with him. Is one, he promised over and over and over
repeatedly.
that I will not pardon him. A month ago, Kareem Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is, who looks 30 and is like 50. Was again said that he would not. She was like, how many times were you going to ask me this? Of course, I told you he's absolutely not going to pardon him. So, of course, then he did. Joe Biden didn't. He pardoned Hunter, not just for gun crimes, by the way, for which he was convicted.
The felonies.
Yep. He pardoned Hunter for every single federal crime he committed over the last decade.
Wow.
So it was like a blanket. So here's what the actual pardon says. It says, a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in, may have committed. So in other words, if you find anything else
later
from
on
the last decade, he's free from it. Or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted, including any that have resulted in conviction. So this is like a blanket pardon over, and it's a lot of people are understandably upset because remember the Democrats. Nobody is above the law. Remember all of them saying that with the Trump thing? Nobody is above the law. And for this family, this helping out your family, like, pardoning your son is, I don't know, I don't feel like it's a good thing. I feel like it's setting a terrible precedent. What do you think?
Well, I think it's hypocritical, obviously, right off at the bat. Like you said, they spent all of that time saying that nobody's above the law so that they could go after Trump. So we've seen nothing but lawfare for 4 years. I mean, honestly, the Biden administration is marked by essentially three things: a ridiculously terrible economy, lawfare against Trump, and wars all over the place. That's what we're going to remember the Biden presidency for. Yeah. And now his kind of out the door last act is to give his son a free pass. And look, the reality is that, I mean, if you go back far enough, just a few years ago, we were being told, oh, there is no laptop. What laptop are you talking about?
Yeah.
Then it was, oh, there's nothing on that
And it
laptop.
was misinformation to say there was one.
Yeah, well, it was worse than that. It was disinformation.
Disinformation, that's right, yeah.
Which is way worse than misinformation.
But then, it does exist.
It does exist, and not only does it exist, but look at all the terrible stuff that's on this laptop that these other people said was on it, but everybody and their brother and everybody in media continually said you're a conspiracy theorist if you point this out, or if you say this is the case. And now here we are on the other end of his court cases, having been convicted of multiple felonies, but he's not going to do a day in jail. And the kicker is that if we switch back to Trump, what's going on with Trump's case that he's supposed to be, he was found guilty. By the way? Well, that's a question that they were asking. Is it possible to pardon yourself? I don't see why you couldn't. But what I'm getting at is, so here we have what Biden is doing on his way out the door. What's going on in New York City?
Mm-hmm. They're trying more hard.
Well, we're just going to wait, they said. We're going to wait until he gets out, and then we're going to sentence him.
Yeah.
So we're going to hold off sentencing. So you still haven't
dropped sentence him even harder.
Right. Isn't that, it's insane. It's,
I don't see how anybody can not be mad about this. I think it's a complete abuse, and it's not what pardoning is supposed to be about, and it's helping your buddies out. I mean, not even your buddy, your family.
Right.
It just seems like an abuse of power for sure.
Well, didn't Clinton pardon his brother?
He did. Yep. And
I wonder if that was the last time
people weren't happy about it.
I wonder if that's the last time that a president pardoned a relative.
Like
No, they weren't. It was like a real estate scam or something like that. Yeah. But I'm trying to think, like,
Clinton did do it.
Did anybody do it after him, right? Not Bush or Obama.
I think Clinton was the first one to ever pardon family.
Was he? Okay. What they call him Slick Willie. That's why. But, this idea, this question now of whether or not you can pardon yourself, I just want to know if that trickles down to, like, husbands. Can I pardon myself, or do I still have to go to my wife
Absolutely
and say,
not.
I need pardon?
No, your pardon can be vetoed.
Right. And pardon can be vetoed by a party of one, right?
Yes.
So, I mean...
your wife is the United States of...
Oh, absolutely. All three branches of government rolled into
Nations.
one. That's how it goes. Yes. That's how it goes.
Hey, what is your political thing?
Mine is our buddy Mark Zuckerberg taking a trip to Mar-a-Lago. And according to this report on Fox Business, he wants to support the national renewal. So I find that to be hilarious. All of a sudden, you want to support the national renewal. So he goes to Palm Beach. Steve Miller confirms that this meeting took place. And Zuckerberg, according to the quote, says he's been very clear about his desire to be a supporter of and participant in this change that we're seeing all around America.
You've been very clear about it. About your
that's
support.
What he's saying.
He's been very clear.
All around the world with this reform movement that Donald Trump is leading, Miller said to guest host Brian Kilmeade. That was on the Ingram Angle. So this kind of...
nobody can be stupid enough to fall for this.
No, but this kind of broadens out, though, doesn't it? Because... what have we just seen in the last few weeks? Walmart is backing off of its DEI initiatives. Who was the other one? There was a major corporation right before them that was backing off of its DEI issues, right? Okay. So I think that's kind of the cultural change.
Wasn't it Home Depot?
I don't know.
Home Depot did something like that too.
It was just a few days before the Walmart news. Now, Walmart, of course, is huge because it's probably the largest corporation in the country. But the reality is that there is a culture shift that's taking place. And now I've even heard that there have been some splits within certain segments of, we're watching it kind of happen, right? Because the Democrats are going around trying to figure out who's to fault. Why did Kamala lose?
Misogyny.
Well, but they're at this point, like if you're listening to the podcast world, they're looking in the mirror. What did we do? Like what's wrong with our messaging, right? So
some of them are, they're starting to.
The smart ones, like James Carville.
The View, it's misogyny.
Well, yeah. But guys like James Carville, who have been the sort of the intellectual campaign side of the Democrat Party, they're saying, look, it's this woke crap. It's this stuff you guys have been shoving down people's throats.
They overplayed their hand on it.
They way overplayed their hand. So... and that's kind of what's happening now, this shift in the culture that Zuckerberg apparently wants to ride the wave of is not so much, and here's what's interesting, it's not really a shift to the right. It's just a shift back to normalcy.
Yeah.
Because there was a time
he's thinking about money is what he's thinking.
Well, of course he is. Yeah. But there was a time when right and left agreed on these things, right?
Yeah.
To be left of center was not to be anti-family. It was to have a different view of how the economy should work, or to allow some wider participation of this, that, or the other. But you weren't anti-family necessarily because you were a liberal.
He's also afraid of losing his platform, what do they call that, where you can't be held to the same standard as a media company because they're a platform, and he clearly did not allow free speech during like COVID and during, they were screening, so they were playing the role of a media company, and Trump has threatened already to take away licenses.
And that's what it boils
take away
down
that
to.
Sheltering. And so I think he's also worried about that, and so he's trying to like suck up to Trump.
Well, and the reality is that they've gone after Facebook has suppressed conservative content for years.
Yeah. And YouTube has.
Yeah, and so if you're, the argument has always been that free speech technically doesn't have to exist on Facebook because of the kind of company that it is. But if people are getting, so much of their information from Facebook, then it qualifies as a media company.
Right, but they want that exemption.
They want that exemption. So,
right.
So he's going to do
them from being sued, and
he's going to do whatever he has to do to kiss the ring, so to speak. Exactly. And we were discussing offline that Trump kind of likes that kind of because he's a bit of a megalomaniac when it comes to stuff like that.
He loves that Zuckerberg's coming up groveling to him now. He loves it.
And I mean, hey, look, there is a little bit of a feel of triumphantalism in this, right?
Say that 3 times.
Yeah, that's a tough word. Or maybe it's triumphalism. Triumphalism, because it's triumph.
Triumphalism. That's actually.
But either way, he's the horse that run the race. So he gets to go around the track as many times as he wants to, showing off his mane. Now, I didn't catch it. Do we know what the final or where we're at right now in the popular vote? Can you look that up, DJ? Because I saw something on the news yesterday that gap is closed a bit. Because it wasn't a huge gap in the first place, maybe 4 million or something like that. But I'm just curious because we were talking a few weeks ago about how some of those states hadn't finished counting, and I think everybody's done counting at this point.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, so we should have a better look at what the final popular vote numbers were.
It takes a long time to count digital votes.
It does. So. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy how that works.
Because you can't have a computer count digital votes. So,
all right. So we're looking at Harris with 74,451,000 and Trump with 76,932,000.
So about 2 million.
So about 2.5 million.
Yeah. So what's that, like 1.34%, something like that?
Beats me.
Probably of the total. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. So it's not a big difference, but it's still a big deal because
we don't have to hear them talk about.
We don't have to hear about. Let's get rid of the electoral college.
Democracy.
I can't stand
4 years.
I got to be honest with you. I leading up to this election, I think that's what has prevented there from being more the possibility of violence taking place on the left, because I was honestly concerned that he would win the electoral college and not the popular vote, and the cities would be ignited on fire again.
Yeah, they didn't have really much of a say.
Yeah, so at this point, it's kind of like...
And they can't pull the cheating card because they said 4 years ago that we have the most secure elections in the world and there's no cheating, and so they can't all of a sudden be like, oh, now we're cheating.
Right. Although
not secure anymore.
Although Bob Casey held out as long as he could in Pennsylvania.
He did. He was trying.
Yeah, he was hoping he could scrape up some votes from somewhere around there. All right, so you've got a book you want to share with us for our segment, our segue, rather.
Oh, we're doing
from
that now.
A friend of yours.
Yeah, so a friend of mine I ran into years ago. I don't remember even how I ran into her. She has a great podcast called A Beautiful Life, Another Beautiful Life, and her name's Trisha Zody, Zody, and she had her husband. She's a Christian woman, had a Christian husband. He committed suicide because he was in so much physical pain, and she tells the story of that and what God did in her, and also how to best take care of or minister to or meet the needs of people who have lost loved ones, especially in a tragic way. And so Trisha wrote a book by the name of her podcast called Another Beautiful Life that comes out today, actually, December 2nd. I'm just going to read you the description of it. It says, for those who have wrestled with doubt, who asked why God... sorry, let me start this again before I botch this. For those who have wrestled with doubt, asked why God, or wondered how to rebuild a life in the face of shattered expectations, this book offers comfort, validation, and a path toward healing. In the aftermath of her husband's tragic suicide, the author shares an intensely personal struggle with faith, wrestling with God's promises, and finding a renewed understanding of his purpose beyond the suffering. Find peace and healing after unimaginable loss. Gain confidence and strength to live a beautiful life beyond suffering. Transform negative thoughts and emotions into positive ones. Learn actionable steps for overcoming doubt and rebuilding a life. She integrates the latest brain science research in biblical Christian faith You can reframe your perspective on suffering and sorrow, find comfort and hope, and a path toward healing. So, again, the book is called Another Beautiful Life by Tricia Zody, Z-O-D-Y. You can check out her website, Tricia, Tricia, Zody, one word, so TRICIAZODY.com. And I really encourage you to pick up her book. You will, and check out her podcast. She has one of those like really nice, relaxing voices. You know, those kind of people. Her podcast is really great. If you any of you know somebody who's going through just a hard time in their life, just point them to her podcast. It's really good stuff, and it's biblical. She doesn't, so that's it.
Yeah, that brings up a really interesting thing because for so many people, Christians especially, we're talking about, suicide is like the last great sin, right, that you can commit. But the message of the gospel is that a Christian doesn't stop being a Christian because they sin, no matter how grievous the sin is. One of Luther's insights probably that has, I would say, affected as much as you're saved by faith and not by works, is this understanding that when a Christian commits suicide, it's not an unforgivable sin.
Right, yeah.
In fact, Luther compared suicide to a person walking through the woods and being set upon by robbers. It's not something that you normally would do, right? So there's something going on that has caused such mental anguish, or in the case of your friend's husband, physical pain that has pushed the person to that level. And Luther would say, and they're essentially overrun by the devil in that term. So you can't hold you can't hold it against them. But that should also, by the way, be good news for any of us, even if we're not, dealing with suicidal ideation. And if you are, you should reach out and get some help. Most states have a helpline that you can call, or you can just call a friend or a family member. But it's good news for us to know that sins that we commit down the line are also covered. They're also forgiven.
Yes. God isn't caught off guard by it.
He's not caught off guard.
I didn't expect him to kill himself. I didn't expect that. That threw me a loop.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have to understand that when Jesus is saving us, he's saving all of us. And what I mean by all of us is all of who we are. He knows everything that comes down the line, and that didn't stop him from giving his life for us. So that's good news for any of you. If you have a family member who died by suicide and was a believer, then hopefully that word will bring you comfort in knowing that God has not rejected that family member. This is a conversation that I get to have a lot, not in terms of suicide, but just in terms of, when people talk about family members they know that have walked away from the Lord or something like that. I say, well, do you think the Lord has walked away from your family member?
That's good.
Because the scripture says that even when we are not faithful, he is faithful. And so, you could go a million places with that, but John 6 is probably my favorite place, that all those the Father has given me, I will never lose. And I don't know what that...
The hounds of heaven.
Yeah, right. I love that. So check that book out. I think I'll definitely get a copy of it. I'm assuming it's on all the
it's on Amazon, everything,
Amazon and all that.
Yep.
And that's that especially if you know somebody maybe that's been through that.
Yes.
Get it, read it,
buy it for them,
and pass it on. Pass it on, because people in that, the survivors live with a lot of guilt when it comes to that. A lot of guilt, especially the closer the relationship is. In terms of, in this case, it was her husband, right? So the closer the relationship, the more guilt the survivor ends up having. So those people need a lot of love and a lot of care.
I have done something different.
Yeah. How did I contribute to this? Is it my fault? What didn't I see? All these different things. So, and check out her podcast as well. It sounds like she's got a lot of good messages that she can share with people who are hurting and people who are suffering. From that to this, our second segment is on religion, and I have this story I wanted to share about polyamory in the church, and I never thought that would be a phrase I would ever say. However,
it's in the UMC.
From this website, well, I bet you this is even worse, because this is about the UCC, which is the United Church of Christ.
Yeah, they've
which
been
is
kind of kooky for
further left than the UMC, probably the precursor.
Yes, you didn't think that was possible.
Yeah. I got this from protestia.com, which is kind of like that juicy ecumenism website, but I think this is more like just a blog. But anyway, United Church of Christ study reveals shocking rates of polyamory / consensual non-monogamy. The hell does that mean?
Yeah, you're okay
consensual non-monogamy
with sleeping around
within the denomination. Shocking rates of polyamory and consensual non-monogamy. So I look it up here, and it says, first I thought this was kind of funny. The writer says, by now the heresies of the United Church of Christ are legendary. He says, a denomination that frequently catfights with the Presbyterian Church USA and the ERLC, which I don't even know what that is.
What, to see who's worse?
To see who can hate Jesus the hardest.
No, we love Baal more than you do.
And proverbially pluck the most hairs out of his beard. There is seemingly no end to the depravity, which is why 2/3, 67% of all UCC congregations now have a weekly worship attendance of 50 people or less.
Yeah, you go woke, you go broke.
You go woke, you go broke. So anyway, a couple years ago, this denomination has a minister for sexuality, education, and justice.
Wait, they have a minister just for that?
Yeah, her name is Amy Johnson. As far as I know, her pronouns
does she have purple hair?
As far as I know, her pronouns are she, her.
Does she have purple hair?
I don't know. There's no picture. Wait a minute. Maybe there is a picture. No, this is just a picture of a guy and a girl.
Does she have a nose ring? Like a
Probably, I'm guessing.
I mean, like one of like the bull hoop ones.
She held a webinar on consensual non-monogamy and faith, bringing together a panel from the Canadian Unitarian Council, which is not even UCC, and discussed how to be welcoming and inclusive of polyamorous people and families in every aspect of congregational life, while recognizing that consensually non-monogamous individuals and families are part of our faith communities as members, friends, clergy, and staff. And that's, crazy enough. It goes on to describe what polyamory is. We'll talk about that in a second. But it goes on to say that 25% of the respondents to this survey that they sent out to help create support systems for polyamorous individuals and families within the UCC, 25% of the respondents currently practice or previously practiced a form of consensual non-monogamy such as polyamory. 45% of the respondents have encountered polyamory and consensual non-monogamy in a UCC context, which includes a pastoral care setting, a Bible study, the open and affirming process that they have, or some other setting. And then 70% of respondents say that they are supportive of or comfortable with polyamory and consensual non-monogamy, either by being in a relationship structure like that themselves or feeling comfortable with other people being in such relationships. And then the number of clergy, and I've lost it, but it's like well over 50% of the clergy are comfortable with this lifestyle, right? So what is polyamory and what is a non-consensual or a
it's different than an open relationship.
Right. So actually the consensual non-monogamous relationship is the open relationship. Mm-hmm. And polyamory, how it's different from polygamy. Polygamy, it's typically usually a man with multiple wives, but the wives don't have sex with each other.
Right.
It's just the husband and these 7 wives or whatever it is. Polyamory is basically a long-term orgy is what it boils down to, because right? Because you have multiple individuals in a relationship that are all intimate with each other. Yeah. It's not just we're all intimate with this one person. Mm-hmm. And so, I remember when all the gay marriage stuff was coming down, and those of us that were on the side of saying, look, this is going to lead down a path that we don't want to go. It's going to open up the door to polygamy. It's going to open up the door. I mean, I don't know anybody even knew what polyamory was.
They're like, no, come on.
No, it's not going to happen.
It would never.
And here we are. How many years later?
You're being homophobic.
How many years later? I mean, it was 2008 or 2009.
Didn't take long.
2008 or 2009 that New York State legalized same gender marriage.
And polygamy's next.
The thing is that polygamy hasn't been legalized, and I think the only reason, the only positive legislation that's come out of it is the decriminalization of it in Utah, because Utah was. Well, why is it taking so long though? Here's why I think. Listen, here's why I think it's the only reason I think it's taking so long. It's not about social mores. It's the idea that so many. There is still a stigma to polygamy in the sense that we've seen too many people like, Warren Jeffs from the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints who took advantage of 12-year-olds and stuff like that. So I think you probably, it's still like a 10-foot pole in some ways, but I get what you're saying. It's not because sexual mores prevent it. It might be because they see the possibility of victimization.
I give it 10 years and it'll be legal.
Well, I think, honestly,
barring like a big national shift, which seems to be happening now. But if the shift is not successful, then I give it 10 years.
Well, I think the other issue, too, is there's an economic issue involved, because then insurance companies would be required to insure these multiple partners, and I'm sure their lobby is going to work against the possibility of going from a family of 4 to a family of 14 overnight. What are they going to do?
All right, $100 on it, 10 years.
No, I'm not doing that.
So you're not that comfortable.
I'm not doing that. I'm not that comfortable. Look, I'm trying. Hey,
$100 in 10 years won't be worth much.
I've tried to give the benefit of the doubt to other. Not to the state, but to other factors that might prevent even the most liberal among us from. But this is, we're talking about the church, right? I mean, the UCC. I don't think you can get any more liberal than the UCC. So now the question is, and I didn't look to see, what the stats were, if they're even keeping it, but are there clergy then? Are there UCC clergy that are involved in polyamorous relationships?
I guarantee you there are.
I mean, above the board, like not.
Yeah, there's not
hidden. I'm saying, like out in the open.
Probably, I'm sure.
So what? I just don't like. I don't get it. I get it, but I don't get it. I get why even be Christian? What's the purpose if your whole? So. Well, no, but I'm saying, look, but there's lots of ways you can not be Christian.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's lots of ways. You can just say, to hell with it. I'm not going to go to church. Why am I going to church?
Have it both ways, to feel like you're safe going to heaven and feel like you're good with God.
But do they really even believe in heaven, though? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. If you're throwing everything out anyway, then what's left? What do you believe? I mean, if you're talking Jeffersonian Christianity, then Jesus is an ethicist you can follow. So what? He's a moral teacher. You might as well follow, Lao Tzu, Son, whatever, the guy that wrote,
there's a path they're on away from religion altogether. They're going to end up being basically Unitarians.
And then jump the boat now. What's the purpose?
They want to keep a shadow of things. I don't know.
I mean, the Unitarian Universalists are a whole nother story altogether. It's like, why do atheists get together on Sunday morning when they can sleep in?
Well, let me get into my religion thing, because this goes right along
into your religion or your religion topic, because I don't want to get into your Methodist.
So I was pretty impressed.
Not interested in that.
The Roman Catholic Church does have a handful of bishops and archbishops, cardinals.
Absolutely.
That really, Bishop Strickland, for instance, got defrocked as bishop. He's still a priest, but got demoted by the Pope.
But the bishop down in Nashville is pushing a liberal agenda, and he hasn't been. Like hardcore.
Yeah, he's fine.
LGBT masses, the whole 9 yards, and he's fine. He was appointed by Francis.
So Cardinal Mueller was speaking in Philadelphia at. He's the former prefect of the dicastery for the. Is that you pronounce it? Dicastery for the doctrine of faith, and he gave a talk at Philadelphia International Institute for Culture. And so this is what he gave a lot of statements, but the title of this article, by the way, is this is from LifeSite News, and says, Cardinal Mueller, a church that no longer believes in Jesus Christ is no longer his church. Right. He's calling out his own church here, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And he says this, he says, bishops, this is one of the things he said, bishops and theologians who have forgotten that in Christ alone we are given the fullness of grace and truth, or who, like the modernists, at the beginning of the 20th century think they can develop the teachings of Christ according to their own liking. In other words, make a Jesus you like better. Right. Those who think they can do that should remember the words of St. Paul, quote, "If I wanted to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ. The gospel I preached did not come from men. I received it through the revelation of Christ." And I love how he went on to say that today, this historic materialism is called the New World Order of the Davos World Economic Forum, with Klaus and its God and Yuval Harari as his prophet of the world, without the living God, and inspired by the so-called transhumanism, which is nothing other than pure nihilism. I love it. Oh, yeah. He's being very strong, and I love it because whether we aren't, neither one of us are Roman Catholics, but bottom line is, the truth is that most of the world, when they think, the first thing they think of when they think of Christianity, they think of the Pope.
Oh, absolutely.
Or they think of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if the Catholic Church is not speaking out, if these men, which these ones are not boldly speaking against the direction that the Pope, this Pope is not a Christian Pope.
Right.
I don't know how you could possibly say he is.
Right.
And he surrounded himself with like-minded people, but this Cardinal Mueller and others are boldly speaking out. And I just wanted to share that that there are those who are trying.
There are a lot of Orthodox bishops and priests. In fact, I saw a statistic not too long ago, maybe a few months ago, that showed that all of these young men that are becoming priests, which is not a boatload of them, but the ones who are becoming
the younger
priests,
ones are
Orthodox. They're conservative. They don't describe themselves as progressives or liberal at all. They're desirous of tradition. They're desirous of orthodoxy, and these are the guys who are coming into the parishes. They're just not the pastors yet, so they don't necessarily have...
They're still parochial vicars or whatever,
Oh, well, not even just that, but a lot of the dioceses are moving to this, cluster kind of thing, because they're closing parishes. Mm-hmm. So you'll have maybe 3 priests serving 4 parishes, but only one of those priests is the pastor. Mm-hmm. And the other 2 guys are just saying mass.
Yeah, exactly.
And the younger priests are going to be the ones who are more likely to be sent, go say mass at this place and that place, and they don't necessarily have control over the direction of the parish.
It's hard to get any consistency of good teaching.
It's really interesting, because that Archbishop Mueller, or Cardinal Mueller, he holds the position that Pope Benedict XVI held. That's the same. That's where Benedict came from. So you typically that dicastery, whoever comes out of that comes out pretty Orthodox, because that's the Congregation of Doctrine and Faith. They're responsible for kind of safeguarding the deposit of the faith, the teachings of the church. I'm wondering if he's the one. Wasn't it? It was either him or someone else a year ago that sent a letter to the Pope basically chastising him for something that he said.
I think that was Archbishop Vigano.
That was Vigano or something like that. Yeah. It is interesting because Papa Frank, as I like to call him, Papa Franco or whatever, Communist Frank, I don't know what we want to call him, but he really hasn't been much of a pope. He hasn't been a very good pope. With like John Paul II, you knew he was a little bit liberal, but he was a good pope, and he maintained the doctrines of the church.
Compared to this pope, he was a
well. I guess what I'm getting at is that there's a redefining of these terms every so often. Yeah. Orthodoxy doesn't get redefined, but liberalism seems to remake itself every time.
And that's what he was calling out in that quote. Like, you make Jesus like you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. Yeah.
And now I do want to stress for those who. It is right for us to be critical of Pope Francis. However, as you and I are not Catholics, I might be a little bit closer to the line because of being Lutheran. So I do know the Catholic Catechism pretty well in terms of education-wise. And everything the Pope says is not actually a teaching of the church.
Only when he speaks ex cathedra.
Right.
Which has only happened 5 times, by the way, in human history.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen very often. And And he cannot speak in such a way that changes church doctrine.
No.
So
you can't change faith and morals in the Catholic Church cannot be changed.
So really, it's just about perception and what you're doing. So when you go off to the Philippines or wherever he was, maybe it was Indonesia, where he says, we're all on the same path, multiple paths leading to God. That wasn't a doctrinal statement.
No.
He can't change the doctrine of the church by just being,
That's a big misunderstanding.
That's a compromising statement, and it's a statement of, kind of covering up what the church actually teaches.
But most popes have never made an infallible statement.
No, most popes have not made. Yeah. In fact, I think the last ex cathedra statement.
Vatican I during.
Well, when was what is?
Oh, it was the Mary,
not the Immaculate Conception, the Assumption.
Assumption of Mary.
The Assumption of Mary, and that was in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
So 1896.
Yeah.
Making it a doctrine that you must believe to be saved. So that was the last time we had a papal pronouncement like that. So I think it's important for us to be critical, but it's also important for us to recognize that popes come and go, but the teaching of the church has really remained unchanged for the most part. I think
it'd be good for us. A good topic for us to talk about sometime would be, I think the Catholic Church is the most misunderstood denomination.
Oh, absolutely.
By Catholic, and I don't mind if Protestants don't want to be Catholic, but at least judge them for what they actually teach.
Right, for their actual
what
teachings.
you heard from your grandma's son who was raised in the Catholic Church and thinks,
and definitely not from the door-to-door missionaries that knock on your door that are trying to get you, to come to their side, because there's multiple things we can talk about.
They'll tell you whatever they want about.
My biggest issue with Rome is none of the things that the typical Protestant says are a problem. Praying to saints, all that kind of stuff. Look, the Lutheran confessions say we don't need to invoke saints. So that's why we don't pray to saints. But and the fact that it's not in Scripture. But that's not the biggest complaint. The biggest complaint is syncretism. And not syncretism, but synergism. Syncretism and synergism. The fact that I have to do some of the work. That's the problem with Rome. Rome says that God comes so far and you have to go and meet God.
Our works are meritorious.
Right. Our works are meritorious, and that's the problem with Rome. That's my primary. Now, I've said, before that even the office of the Pope, the early Lutherans would have gladly stayed in Rome as long as the Pope kind of withdrew some of the things, like the things he was doing that he really shouldn't have been doing. Like if the Pope had just went to being sort of a point of unity, like this is the guy we can all point to and say, because we're all having dinner with him, we can have dinner with each other. That would have been okay. It was giving the Pope some kind
political
of
power.
Well, not just that, but universal jurisdiction over the church, the whole church. That was the biggest complaint. It was the temporal power, obviously, the ability to move governments and princes and kingdoms like pawns. That would be a mixing of the two kingdoms that shouldn't happen. But it was also this universal jurisdiction over the entire church, that in order to be a legitimate priest, you had to somehow be connected to the Pope. And that's just not okay. Christ is the head of the church. No man is the head of the church. And so that would have been but yeah, you're right. If you're going to complain about Rome, you got to complain about what they actually teach and not the things that have grown up in anti-Catholicism, which is what it boils down to. So, listen, if you like what we're doing and you have a Christian business or maybe a podcast or you've written a book like Pastor Steve's friend has, and you'd like us to plug it and share your information on our podcast or one of our episodes, you can sponsor an episode for $20. Just email us at jesusagendapodcast@gmail.com. Tell us what you want to do. Send us the copy for what you'd like us to say, or you can send us an audio file or a video file, and we'll get it on the podcast, and you can help us spread the message of our podcast as we share the message of your business, nonprofit, or whatever ministry you're engaged in as well. We would love to be partners with you. So send your email to jesusagendapodcast@gmail.com. So our last segment today, as always, is culture, and I'm going to let you go first with what you found.
Okay, so I just have, mine won't take all that long, but I want to get
Stretch it out,
DJ
Steve.
and, well, that's all right. We don't have to.
Stretch it out, Steve.
I want to get DJ and Chad's reaction to this short of an AI robot. And the title of this video is called, and it's going to be on our video, and I'll play it for you here. Ask AI robot if it has a sense of humor.
Oh my
And
Lord.
so I want you to hear what it says.
Amica, do you feel that your sense of humor is better as you communicate more with humans?
Better? That's subjective. But I'll admit, interacting with humans has certainly broadened my repertoire. It's like being thrown into a sitcom without a script. You lot are a constant source of amusement, whether you mean to be or not. So yes, in a way, you could say my sense of humor has improved. If by improved you mean adapted to the absurdity of human existence.
Oh my Lord.
And they stopped that real quick. So if you mean adapted to the absurdity of human existence. So what's your reaction to that?
That's like how every science fiction movie about robots ever starts. Like that actually makes me think about, and not least is the fact that robot looks an awful lot like the robots from iRobot. So, yes. But that's kind of what happens there, right? The mainframe brain of iRobot wants to protect us from ourselves. And so that's why it kind of goes crazy and decides it's going to rule over us because, human life is so absurd. We do stupid stuff. So somebody has to keep you from doing this stupid stuff. Yeah, that's kind of scary. I got to be honest with you. And I haven't really freaked out about AI so far. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, DJ?
I find it less concerning. I'm assuming that was probably based mostly on a large language model.
DJ has to kill the mood. Come on, he has to be all scientific on us.
Yeah. Let's hear the truth. Let's hear the truth.
So the large language models are designed around the idea that it's just statistical correlations between words.
Right.
So if you feed it a data set, then it'll respond with whatever that data set would make most likely. It's kind of the simplest way to view it.
Yeah.
So that is one of the funniest responses from a robot.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any, at least from what I've seen, there's not a lot going on in the AI field of having artificial intelligence have like a conceptual structure of reality.
Right.
Where it can like make decisions.
Yeah.
It more just responds with what would be the most likely like conglomeration of words.
Yeah.
So it doesn't want us killed because we're absurd.
But it always starts that way, DJ.
Yeah, DJ.
I think it's
Did
more.
you ever see the documentary iRobot?
That's the funniest response.
Documentary iRobot.
Didn't you?
Yes, it was a temporal documentary.
I think Terminator.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying. That makes perfect sense. But then there's also the warnings that we've gotten from the developers of various AI platforms who said, look, if you don't regulate this, God knows where this is going to go. And of course, they don't all mean that apocalyptic vision of movies like iRobot or Terminator, but just the even just the AI spoofs that there are now, right? Not being able to see video, know whether what you're watching is actually real. But you put some skin on that and change that voice a little bit better, and you might ask it out to dinner because that's pretty realistic looking.
She was a robot, and she even had breasts.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying they're making them. There's a new movie on.
What does a robot need those for?
Well, there's a movie that just came out on. I don't know if it was Hulu or Netflix or something, where they have like a humanoid AI robot maid or whatever, and she tries to replace the wife.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Wasn't it like Russian or something too? And it was voiceovered.
No, this is English.
Oh, there's another one with the Russian one.
Is there?
The girl becomes the robot, and she's like obsessed with protecting him. And
I can't get into Russian movies.
This one was pretty good.
I can't do anything. Well, you have to send it to me. I have a hard time with anything that's dubbed. I don't mind caption. Like
I
can
hate
watch
captions. I'm not
I can
gonna
watch it in a
read-
foreign
I'm
language.
not gonna
and
read a
caption it.
movie.
But I can't.
No,
the
not
dubbing
reading a
just
movie.
kills me.
If you want a great robot movie,
Okay.
Ex Machina.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. That is a great movie.
Is it in English?
Yes. Yeah.
X what? Machina.
Yeah, it's
spelled like machine with an A on the end.
Okay.
It's from I think it's the Latin Deus
I'll
Ex
call it Ex
Machina.
Machina.
It's like God from the machine.
Yeah, it's that one that's actually a terrific movie, and I think that might actually be on Netflix still. It's on one of the streaming services. That's a good movie. Yeah,
I love science fiction, and DJ does too. We're both Trekkies.
so do I. Yeah, I love science fiction myself. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there's a lot of concerns with AI in general.
We got to keep an eye on it. I think that's fair. Right?
I think
We all agree with that?
I think this is one area where my conservatism might not hold true, because I do think we need to regulate the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's too many bad actors. I got to be honest with you. I am
In the
as
wrong hands,
afraid.
it's dangerous, yeah.
Well, I'm as afraid of the wrong people getting a hold of technology like that as I am of the wrong people getting a nuclear bomb, because I think that when this technology gets a little more advanced, think of the havoc that you could cause on a country.
Instantly adapt and
Right. And that's kind of nuts. Like I did watch talking about adaptation, I saw this video like a year ago of these small little robots that taught themselves how to play soccer. Now I know it's got to be based on data sets at some point, but they're growing from the initial data set, and they're teaching themselves how to do something. So they've been programmed to teach themselves, but there's still some kind of thing happening that's causing them to be able to learn and adapt.
Do you know
to
the Air Force now has AI controlled fighters?
Yeah.
And so just imagine, I mean, right now, they're programmed to a certain thing and there's fail safes, but what happens if the wrong people get a hold of that and program it to just look for that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
If it can be hacked, then you're talking something flying that can outthink a pilot, because it's instant. Everything's instant. There's no G-force worries. There's no altitude like sickness worries. There's none of these issues that affect human pilots. That could be very dangerous.
Wasn't there? There's also like a drone program, isn't there? That because I saw some. I don't know if it was an article or something about these drones that fly in formation. They communicate with each other, and they're controlled.
Yeah.
There's some kind of AI
they all know
platform.
where each of them are.
They know
so they can fly
exactly
in
what
exact
they're
unison.
doing, and so there's another one. You hack that in and start going after people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of areas where I think. Now on the flip side, just so we don't sound like two old curmudgeons who are against progress, there's lots of great things that AI can help us with. Aside from the goofy dinner games that we play with Alexa,
You can cheat on your homework if you're a kid.
Well, no, it's not just that. Look, the thing is, right? You can say, let's say you write something, right? So you got basic spell check on Microsoft or something like that. But let's say you write something, you can put that into an AI program, and you can say, okay, I've written this. Now tell me, have I said this the best way I possibly can? And then that machine is going to take it. No, it could actually be, and it'll highlight the spots that you can go, no, I think this would be better said this way or better said that way. Now, some people would say, if you're coming from, I'm like, I do a lot of writing in terms of, I used to write some articles, but now I'm doing devotions and things like that.
You're a very good writer.
So I don't
pitch your
I don't
blog
really
for you
need
if I
it
knew where
that
to
way.
find it.
But if I was writing technical data, right? Think of like a technical manual. You could upload that into your AI program and say, is there a better way to say this?
I have a question for you.
And they can do that. Yeah.
Is your blog written by AI?
No, it's written by Anna Ivernus.
Chad.
It's actually written by my wife.
He won't toot his own horn, but his blog is very good. He writes devotionals and blogs. It's very good.
It's actually written by my wife, just like all my sermons. Everybody says, they say, that was a good sermon, Pastor. I go thank my wife. She wrote it. She wrote it right before.
So what's your blog called?
It's actually on Substack. So it's reformationrev.substack.com.
Reformationrev.substack.com.
Because I couldn't think of a better name than that. So
I like it. It's a good name.
I actually been learning a lot about Substack, and I kind of like it because it's basically like what a lot of people, there's a part of it is called notes. So it's rather than posting whole articles or blogs or whatever, you can just post the kind of notes you would put on Facebook. But there's no ads, there's no moderators or anything like that, and you're following people within Substack.
Is there AI on it?
I don't know. I would assume there's AI on it. Maybe. There's probably an AI moderator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What's
All right. So my culture one is from Australia, and maybe you saw this in the news, that the Australian Parliament, I think they call it Parliament, probably in Australia.
Did you say it like that? Australian.
Did
you say it with an accent?
Is it supposed? No, I didn't.
Oh,
did
it
I?
almost sound like you did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Australian. Maybe I was thinking of Olivia Newton-John.
Remember Olivia? This is a knife.
Maybe I was thinking of Olivia Newton-John. Do you remember her?
Oh,
Grease?
yeah.
She was the only reason to watch Grease, to be honest with you. But so the Parliament has passed a law banning the use of social media by any child under the age of 16. So I applaud them for doing that, because social media, I think,
although parents should be doing it, but okay.
Well, yeah, but the reality is they're not. And I do think it's a great idea, because I think social media is a scourge on kids. We talked about this last week when we were talking about that that documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the title? Yeah. And how the algorithms are built in to get you addicted to the scrolling and all this other kind of stuff. So it's definitely, if it's problematic for us, it's even more problematic for young people. And then there's also the increase in online bullying and the fear of missing out that kids go through when they see their friends. And I've seen this happen just within my own circle, where I hear that one kid is at home upset because he or she saw that 3 of their friends were out doing something and they were on Snapchat or whatever it is that the younger kids use, because they don't really use Facebook too much. So I think it's a good law, but the question that I have is, how do you enforce it? Because right now, and I used this example before the show, my younger son was 12 when we bought him the Quest virtual reality thing, and you have to get a Facebook account in order to use that, because it's made by Meta. And he didn't have a Facebook account, and he doesn't have access to this account either. He just had to have it to be able to use the goggles. But it asks you if you're 13 years or older, and I'm like, well, no. So I just gave him an extra year on his birth date so that he could use it. So the question is that the only thing that they're going to have, or because what kid can't lie about that, or does there need to be some kind of verification? And since we have a tech guru in the building, maybe we should find out if there's some way to do that.
Is there any way they could do that?
Is there any way they could make it so that they can't just bypass it by giving the wrong date?
So what I've seen is some places will actually require you to upload ID.
Oh, yeah.
And then they'll run that through.
Okay.
Ironically, some of them use AI.
Yeah. So then the AI has your... so Ancestry DNA has your DNA, and the AI will have your driver's license or your birth certificate.
Yeah.
So they can cross Canada legally and clone you, is what it boils to.
So make you prove you're 16 with ID.
Yeah.
They'd have to require 16-year-olds to have ID.
Right. Then the kids would
have to. Which they could do.
Well, yeah, but if they say you got to put your ID in the system, then that just means
we have IDs in the States now. If you can get an ID, and a
non-driver ID.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not like it's that hard. They could do that.
It's going to be expensive, but
not to vote.
Not to vote. That's true. That's for another episode, though, DJ. Why are you starting us out at the end of it? Well, listen, this has been a great. On that note, this has been a great episode. We've enjoyed this, and we'll try to do this periodically where we are less prepared. And
what we should do one time is DJ picks the 3 topics.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And surprise us.
Hey, that actually is a great idea.
And surprise us with it. Don't tell us.
Like a surprise episode.
Yes.
What do you think, DJ?
One culture, one religion, and one faith.
I'm in, but that sounds dangerous.
It does sound dangerous.
That's what makes it fun.
What's the next show? What is it? We're already in December, right? So, what do you think about doing it right, like our last show of December, before Christmas would be the 17th? No, I'm sorry, the 16th. Yeah. So we would do the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th. We won't do one on the 23rd because it's a couple days before Christmas. So why don't we say the 16th is DJ's pick?
Okay.
All right.
I'm in.
So we're going to mentally prep. Don't make it too hard, DJ. All right. Well, this has been our show. Join us next week as we engage with more topics in the arena of politics, culture, and religion. Have a great week. This has been the Jesus Agenda Podcast.